Hello again. For today's reading, I want to address a certain point that has been made several times, which is generous offers and suggestions to communicate with various people regarding my reading, as I'm reading, having somebody to sort of guide me through my interpretation. And so I kind of just want to clarify. Maybe I should have called this series An Islamophobe Reacts to the Quran. But because this is my first impression, I don't want anyone to hold my hand. I want to go through it myself. Um, and I want to get my impressions, get my ideas, show what I'm thinking as I'm thinking it. And that's what we're going to continue doing. Now, today we have quite a similar topic. I did a little sneaky pre-read of the introduction. Today's chapter is Surah is correctly called, or the correct title, I'm probably going to invent my own, is Joseph. And the introduction is a Meccan surah dealing primarily with the story of Joseph, but framed by a 3-verse introduction about the Quran and a 10-verse epilogue about the Meccans' response to it, the punishment met by earlier disbelievers, and encouragement for the Prophet. So this to me very much sounds like exactly like the last 2 chapters, where we are going to be regaled with all of the great stories about past people who didn't listen to prophecy, didn't listen to doomsayers, didn't listen to their prophets. Now, again, as like many people in the text, in my comments, repeatedly insist that no, the proofs come later. This isn't a proof. Shouldn't be taken as a proof. And like the prophets of the past, they also came with clear miracles, clear proofs to show to other people. Now, I want to be very clear about this. God is now, I assume, or we'll see, seems to want to spend yet another chapter comforting the prophet on the rejection of people around him. Now, it's a good idea to have. Like, I understand this, and that it sometimes happens during the text, like the sort of upsetness out disbelievers. But I'm now doing what I usually do when I read Christianity, read other religious texts, or read religious texts that I'm more familiar with. Christianity being the top of them. I'm imagining the scenario, and it very much seems to me to be a scenario where the prophet is frustrated by the difficulty in trying to convince people of the veracity of God's revelation and the difficulties in overcoming doubt. And I want to sort of stress the lack of wisdom of the prophet. Now, I don't think God could have instilled him with sufficient wisdom to endure the harsh reality of that cynicism has brought me, that there are quite a lot of people who will not accept things and will doubt things. And doubt, I think, is a very useful tool. Somebody phrased my view quite well, that I believe that the beginning of all knowledge is a form of, I think he used the word insolence, or doubt is how I would phrase it. The beginning of all knowledge is I do not know. And the difference between me and the believers seems to be that when I say I do not know, I mean I do not believe. When they say I do not know, they still believe. But perhaps we get some glorious proof. Perhaps God takes this third attempt, this third opportunity, this third possibility to actually tell us something about the miracles that these disbelievers, these doubters, were punished for not following. So, Alif Lam Ra. These are the verses of the scripture that makes things clear. We have sent it down as an Arabic Quran so that you people may understand. Very good. Please do it again, in English this time. We tell you, Prophet, the best of stories in revealing this Quran to you. Before this, you were one of those who knew nothing about them. Joseph said to the father, Father, I dreamed of 11 stars and the sun and the moon. I saw them all bowed down before me. So 2 more planets, I guess. And he replied, My son, tell your brothers nothing of this dream, or they may plot to harm you. Satan is man's sworn enemy. This is about how your Lord will choose you, teach you to interpret dreams, and perfect his blessing on you and the house of Jacob, just as he perfected it earlier on your forefathers Abraham and Isaac. Your Lord is all-knowing and wise. There are lessons in the story of Joseph and his brothers for all who seek them. The brothers said to each other, "Although we are many, Joseph and his brother are dearer to our father than we are. Our father is clearly in the wrong." One of them said, "Kill Joseph or banish him to another land, and your father's attention will be free to return to you." Our fathers, I assume. After that you can be righteous. Another of them said, "Do not kill Joseph, but, if you must, throw him into the hidden depths of a well where some caravan may pick him up." They said to their father, "Why do you not trust us with Joseph? We wish him well." Ho, that's a good pun. I'm not sure if that works in Arabic, but that's great. Into the depths of a well, and we wish him well. But that's nice. Probably accidental pun, not intended, but I like that. "Send him with us tomorrow, and he will enjoy himself and play. We will take good care of him." He replied, "The thought of you taking him away with you worries me. I am afraid a wolf may eat him when you are not paying attention." They said, "If a wolf were to eat him when there are so many of us, we would truly be losers." Joseph's brothers really, really are bad at arguing. This is not how you make, I guess maybe, how can we miss seeing him being eaten by a wolf? We're so many of us. There are other reasons why humans might be foolish, and a father perhaps should be able to convince his children of such without risking his favorite son. Then they took him away with them, resolved upon throwing him into the hidden depths of a well. Sorry, this one doesn't want to close properly. Then they took him away with them, resolved upon throwing him into the hidden depths of a well. We inspired him, saying, "You will tell them all of this at a time when they do not realize who you are." And at nightfall they returned to their father weeping. What? And resolved upon throwing him. We inspired him, saying, "You will tell them all." Oh, we inspired Joseph, I presume. They said, "We went off racing one another, leaving Joseph behind." So after they came to their father weeping, "We went off racing one another, leaving Joseph behind with our things, and a wolf ate him. You will not believe us, though we are telling the truth." Yeah, of course not. Joseph's father even gave them the out. They should have at least invented another animal. And they showed him his shirt, deceptively stained with blood. He cried, "No, your souls have prompted you to do wrong, but it is best to be patient. From God alone I seek help to bear what you are saying." Some travelers came by. They sent someone to draw water, and he let down his bucket. "Good news," he exclaimed. That's not what you exclaim. "Good news, everyone!" Good news, he explained. "Here's a boy." They hid him like a piece of merchandise. Well, I guess that's why they say good news. God was well aware of what they did, and then sold him for a small price, for a few pieces of silver. So little did they value him. Well, value is typically decided by what you are able to sell someone for. It's not just the value of the person. A merchant would always sell for as much as they can get, and a person will always pay as little as they can get. You wouldn't take care of a in this case, presumably, if they think of him as merchandise, so you wouldn't sell a slave for less than, or you wouldn't want to take care of a slave more than you need to. The Egyptian who bought him said to his wife, "Look after him well. He may be useful to us, or we may adopt him as a son." In this way, we settled Joseph in that land and later taught him how to interpret dreams. God always prevails in his purpose, though most people do not realize it. When he reached maturity, we gave him judgment and knowledge. This is how we reward those who do good. Interesting. The woman in whose house he was living tried to seduce him. She bolted the doors and said, "Come to me." And he replied, "God forbid. My master has been good to me. Wrongdoers never prosper." She made for him, and he would have succumbed to her if he had not seen the evidence of his Lord. We did this in order to keep evil and indecency away from him, for he was truly one of our chosen servants. It's kind of tragic. You can sleep with people if you'd like to. But perhaps in this case it would have been a bad thing. They raced for the door. She tore his shirt from behind, and at the door they met her husband. Yeah, that would have been bad. She said, "What, other than prison or painful punishment, should be the reward of someone who tried to dishonor your wife?" But he said, "She tried to seduce me." A member of her household suggested, "If his shirt is torn at the front, then it is she who is telling the truth, and he who is lying. But if it is torn at the back, then she is lying, and he is telling the truth." When the husband saw that the shirt was torn at the back, he said, "This is another instance of a woman's treachery. Your treachery is truly great." I mean, not beating the sexism allegations. I mean, perhaps he's married to this woman, so presumably he has a bit of a biased view on women, based on this woman who clearly doesn't really want to be in the marriage with him, or at least wants to sleep around while they are in a marriage. Joseph overlooked this. "But you, wife, ask forgiveness for your sin. You have done wrong." I'm curious, as the skeptic I am, would it not be possible for a seduction to be made? Is it not possible Joseph is lying? He tried to seduce her, and in their lust, she tore his shirt in the back. It seems to me that it's a word against word, but who am I to say? Some women of the city said, "The governor's wife is trying to seduce her slave. Love for him consumes her heart. It is clear to us that she has gone astray." Aw, poor lady. When she heard their malicious talk, it's not very malicious, honestly. There's more malicious things in this book. She prepared a banquet and sent for them, giving each of them a knife. She said to Joseph, "Come out and show yourself to them." And when the women saw him, they were stunned by his beauty, and cut their hands, exclaiming, "Great God, he cannot be mortal. He must be a precious angel." It's one of those weird things that happens a lot in stories, or indeed our understanding of reality. We really struggle to believe that beautiful people can be evil. The most evil people tend to abuse this. Like if you think of serial killers, they tend to have quite decent looks because that's a better way of attracting victims. She said, "This is the one you blamed me for. I tried to seduce him, and he wanted to remain chaste. But if he does not do what I command now, he will be put in prison and degraded." Well, why? I mean, her husband clearly didn't believe her. Joseph said, "My lord, I would prefer prison to what these women are calling me to do. If you do not protect me from their treachery, I shall yield to them and do wrong." If you do, I shall yield to them. Blame God for your mistakes. And his Lord answered his prayer and protected him from their treachery. How? He is all-hearing and all-knowing. How? Please tell me. How did he... What? Why are we missing out the best part of the story here? I like the past ones when he actually describes Moses' interaction with the Pharaoh, and you get this vivid language. Here it's like, well, God protected them. God is all-hearing, all-knowing. Please elaborate. Please tell me the story, not just the cliff notes. In the end, they thought it best, after seeing all the signs of his innocence, that they should imprison him for a while. 2 young men went into prison alongside him. One of them said, "I dreamed that I was pressing grapes." The other said, "I dreamed that I was carrying bread on my head and that the birds were eating it." They said, "Tell us what this means. We can see you are a knowledgeable man." He said, "I can tell you what this means before any meal arrives. This is part of what my Lord has taught me. I reject the faith of those who disbelieve in God and deny the life to come. And I follow the faith of my forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because of God's grace to us and to all mankind, we would never worship anything beside God, but most people are ungrateful. Fellow prisoners, would many diverse gods be better than God, the one, the all-powerful?" And in exclamation marks, no indeed. I mean, presumably this is meant, as the other ones, as a rhetorical question, and as the other rhetorical questions, I will answer, yes. Many diverse gods would in some ways be better. As an explanation for the diversity of actions and behaviors, it is a more useful thing to believe, because it explains away these problems of natural evil. So Now, in another sense, of course, would it be better for us if there was one caring God in power of everything? No, or that, yes, it would probably be better than having many petty gods waging war on each other. So it's uh, as with most of these rhetorical questions, it doesn't encapsulate the beauty of the difficulty of this question. The beauty of philosophy is lost by giving simple answers where there should not be simple answers. There may be indeed something better about having many diverse gods. All those you worship instead of him are mere names you and your forefathers have invented, names for which God has sent down no sanction. Authority belongs to God alone, and he orders you to worship none but him. This is the truth, faith, though most people do not realize it. As the atheist saying goes, we just go one God further. You reject all of these other gods, just go one God further. This God you worship is a mere name you and your forefathers have invented. There is no names being given from God. There is no true faith. No true faith but doubt. So indeed, just go one God further. Use the same argument that is being used against these polytheists against yourself. It does still work. That is an important thing to note when reading like this. Fellow prisoners, one of you will serve his master with wine, the other will be crucified, and the birds will peck at his head. Really? Okay. I thought I missed one, but no. Fellow prisoners, one of you will serve his master with wine, the other will be crucified, and the birds will peck at his head. That is the end of the matter on which you ask my opinion. Joseph said to the one he knew would be saved, mention me to your master. But Satan made him forget to do this, and so Joseph remained in prison for a number of years. Satan made him forget. Sorry, it's amusing to me. The king said, I dreamed about 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean ones, 7 green ears of corn, and 7 others withered. Counselors, if you can interpret dreams, tell me the meaning of my dream. I know the interpretation. I also know the story is also in the Bible, so I know the interpretation, and it's not actually that hard. I'm pretty sure the king could have done it himself. You do not need counselor. They said, these are confusing dreams, and we are not skilled at dream interpretation. But the prisoner who had been freed at last remembered Joseph and said, I shall tell you what this means. Give me leave to go. Truthful Joseph, and he went to Joseph. Truthful Joseph, tell me the meaning of 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean ones, 7 green ears of corn, and 7 others withered. Then I can return to the people and inform them. You will sow for 7 consecutive years as usual. Store all that you reap left in the air, apart from the little you eat. After that will come 7 years of hardship, which will consume all but a little of what you have stored up for them. After that will come a year when the people will have abundant rain and will press grapes. The king said, bring him to me, but when a messenger came to fetch Joseph, he said, go back to your master and ask him about what happened to those women who cut their hands. My lord knows all about their treachery. So, cynical mind here, we're interpreting the story with the brain of someone who doesn't believe everything they're told first time going. Okay, so if Joseph actually was guilty, actually would deserve to be imprisoned, and now it reveals that actually he can see dreams, would he not then try and clean his name using this newfound power? I think he would. What is the difference between this and sorcery? What is the difference between God and sorcery? How do you know if this is the work of the benevolent God or of the Satan? What if the person who made the servant forget Joseph's name was God because he was upset that Satan's champion had a means to escape? The king asked the woman, what happened when you tried to seduce Joseph? The king, asked the woman, what happened when you tried to seduce Joseph? They said, God forbid, we know nothing bad of him. And the governor's wife said, "Now the truth is out. It was I who tried to seduce him. He is an honest man." That was easy. Joseph said, "This was for my master to know that I did not betray him behind his back. God does not guide the mischief of the treacherous." The master seemed to know, like, there's clearly some bits of the story that's being left out for us. "I do not pretend to be blameless, for every man's soul incites him to evil, unless my Lord shows mercy. He is most forgiving, most merciful." The king said, "Bring him to me. I will have him serve me personally." And then, once he had spoken with him, said, "From now on you will have our trust and favor." Joseph said, clearly a very charming man, this Joseph. Joseph said, "Put me in charge of the nation's storehouses. I shall manage them prudently and carefully." In this way we settle Joseph in that land to live wherever he wished. We grant our mercy to whoever we will, and do not fail to reward those who do good. I mean, only like there we go. The reward of the hereafter is best for those who believe and are mindful of God. Because it's strange, this sort of rewarding those who do good, punishing evil never prosper. These things have been disputed earlier in the Qur'an even, and I acknowledge them as clever wisdoms, and sort of the idea of God, the idea of heaven and hell, the idea of the hereafter, as being solutions to this moral quandary of why is it that the world isn't fair, that evil people can have good, long, happy lives. And it's, if I'm going to give credit in the past, I should note that here it's sort of wishy-washy about that. But of course, the reward of the hereafter is always mentioned. It's always definitely, if you ever spot someone, if you never see someone who never experiences good for all the good they have, someone who is clearly a good person, good, faithful, believing person. If you see that and they spend all of their life in misery, at least you can comfort yourself and know that God will reward them. And if they are rewarded in this life, then at least then clearly God has rewarded them in this life. It's a bit sort of self-fulfilling prophecy here, a little bit of a tautology. No matter what result you get, it's proof of the thing that you believe. I wonder if anyone else thinks like that all of the time in my comment sections. Joseph's brothers came and presented themselves before him. He recognized them, though they did not recognize him. And once he had given them provision, he said, "Give me the brother you left with your father. Have you not seen me giving generous measure and being the best of hosts? You will have no more corn from me if you do not bring him to me, and you will not be permitted to approach me." They said, "We shall do all we can to persuade his father to send him with us. Indeed, we shall." Joseph said to his servants, "Put their traded goods back in their saddlebags, so they may recognize them when they go back to their family, and be eager to return." I see. When they returned to their father, they said, "Father, we have been denied any more corn, but send our brother back with us, and we shall be given another measure. We shall guard him carefully." He said, "Am I to entrust him to you as I did his brother before? God is the best guardian and the most merciful of the merciful." Why didn't he? Well, I wanted to say, why didn't he protect Joseph? But clearly he did. God works in mysterious ways. Then when they opened their packs, they discovered that their goods had been returned to them, and they said, "Father, we need no more goods to barter. Look, our goods have been returned to us. We shall get corn for our household. We shall keep our brother safe. We shall be entitled to another camel load of grain, an extra measure so easily achieved." We need no more goods. Yeah, I see. He said, "I will never send him with you, not unless you swear by God that you will bring him back to me if that is humanly possible." Okay, then when they had given him their pledge, he said, "Our words are entrusted to God." He said, "My sons, do not enter all by one gate. Use different gates. But I cannot help you against the will of God. All power is in God's hands. I trust in him. Let everyone put their trust in him." And when they entered as their father had told them, it did not help them against the will of God. It merely satisfied a wish of Jacob's. They seem to be in cahoots at this point, working together. He knew well what we had taught him, though most people do not. I'm starting to see why this is being repeated so often. Though most people do not. Though most people won't understand. Most people won't believe you. But that's okay. Just keep firm in your faith. Even if the whole world tells you otherwise, even if all evidence, all reason tells you otherwise, just keep firm in your faith. God will reward you. Then, when they presented themselves before Joseph, he drew his brother apart and said, I am your brother, so do not be saddened by their past actions. And once he had given them their provisions, he placed the drinking cup in his brother's pack. A man called out, People of the caravan, you are thieves! And they turned and said, What have you lost? They replied, The king's drinking cup is missing. Whoever returns it will get a camel load of grain. And I give you my word. They said, By God, you must know that we did not come to make mischief in your own land. We are no thieves. Mischief in your land. We are no thieves. They asked them, And if we find that you are lying, what penalty shall we apply to you? And they answered, The penalty will be the enslavement of the person in whose bag the cup is found. This is how we punish wrongdoers. Weird bet to make, honestly. But especially after whoever returns it will get a camel load of grain. Like, at that point, any sensible person just goes, well, we didn't steal it, but let's look if we have it. Is it this cup? I'm sorry, we thought it was something else, right? How are these people so bad liars? How are Joseph's? I mean, I'm guessing that's why Joseph did so well. It's much easier to be a good liar. I guess that's what the whole point of the story is. That only the people who could not have thought of these answers themselves think they are quite clever. Joseph began by searching their bags, then his brother's, and he pulled it from his brother's bag. In this way we devised a plan for Joseph. If God had not willed it so, he could not have detained his brother as a penalty under the king's law. We raise the rank of whoever we will. Above everyone who has knowledge, there is the one who is all-knowing. Honestly, Joseph definitely could have thought of this trick himself. I have no doubt that Joseph thought of all of these. Joseph was just an intelligent. This is like reading a story about the one-eyed man in the kingdom of the blind. It's like, yes, clearly Joseph was just smarter than the people around him. One of the great things is what's it called? When stupid people write intelligent people, it's like their intelligence is magic, and this is very much that kind of story. His brothers said, If he is a thief, then his brother was a thief before him. But Joseph kept his secrets and did not reveal anything to them. He said, You are in a far worse situation. God knows best the truth of what you claim. Interesting. They said, Mighty governor, he has an elderly father. Take one of us in his place. We can see that you are a very good man. He replied, God forbid that we should take anyone other than the person on whom we found our property. That would be unjust of us. I'm telling you, Joseph was a clever guy. When they lost hope of persuading him, they withdrew to confer with each other. The eldest of them said, Do you not remember that your father took a solemn pledge from you in the name of God, and before that you failed in your duty with regard to Joseph? I will not leave this land until my father gives me leave or God decides for me. He is the best decider. So go back to your father and say, Your son stole. We can only tell you what we saw. How could we guard against the unforeseen? Yeah, like an act of God, to put it like that. Although, yeah. Act of Joseph, the cunning. Ask in the town where we have been. Ask the people of the caravan we've traveled with. We are telling the truth. Their father said, No, your souls have prompted you to do wrong, but it is best to be patient. May God bring them all back to me. He alone is the all-knowing, the all-wise. And he turned away from them, saying, Alas for Joseph! His eyes went white with grief, and he was filled with sorrow. They said, By God, you will ruin your health if you do not stop thinking of Joseph or even die. He said, I plead my grief and sorrow before God. I have knowledge from God that you do not have. God is definitely a dick in this story. I have knowledge. God is communicating with Joseph's father and he doesn't tell him he's alive? I mean, I guess it's a good surprise party, but it's like, it seems like God is actively encouraging Joseph's father to continue grieving over his lost son many, many years after, at least 14 years, I presume. Perhaps this is happening in the years of plenty. But from what little I remember of the story, this happens in the 7 years when they're not having plenty. My sons, go and seek news of Joseph and his brother, and do not despair of God's mercy. Only disbelievers despair of God's mercy. Only disbelievers despair of God's mercy. Yeah, because he doesn't really have any. He's just a dick. Blood God, the tyrant God. Then when they presented themselves before Joseph, they said, Mighty governor, misfortune has afflicted us and our family. We have brought only a little merchandise, but give us full measure. Be charitable to us. God rewards the charitable. He said, Do you now realize what you did to Joseph and his brother when you were ignorant? Sorry. And they cried, Could it be that you are Joseph? He said, I am Joseph. This is my brother. God has been gracious to us. God does not deny anyone who's mindful of God and steadfast in adversity the rewards of those who do good. As you would if you were a clever man. He would say, clearly I'm a good person. That's why I got all this shit, man. I got all this bling because I'm such a great man. That's all the only reason. I did not try and seduce her. I did not deceive anyone about anything. I am just so good and nice. That's everything. They said, By God, God really did favor you over all of us, and we were in the wrong. But he said, You will hear no reproaches today. May God forgive you. He is the most merciful of the merciful. And of course, like if you were abandoned by your family and it turned out that the result of that was you became essentially a king in a foreign land, honestly, I'd take it. I'd say, you know what? Actually, you're dicks. I don't like that you're dicks, but this worked out for the best for all of us. Take my shirt and lay it over my father's face. He will recover his sight. Then bring your whole family back to me. Ah, okay, so the miracle of his father returned, like his eyes went white with grief, apparently. I assumed that was just started crying, but apparently that means blindness. Or apparently blindness happened earlier, and I just missed it. Later, when the caravan departed, their father said, You may think I am senile, but I can smell Joseph. But people said, By God, you are still lost in that old illusion of yours. Then, when the bearer of good news came and placed, to be fair, that's what you would say. Like somebody is so lost in grief that decades after their son has died, they still insist that they smell him everywhere. You would try and sort of, they've probably been trying to get him to sort of move on for decades, but that's a mercy. It is better for people to sort of be able to move on with their lives. It is better that they not spend the rest of their life in grief. Honestly, I think that if you told Joseph that the last 10, 20 years his father had just been crying his eyes out every night, he would be upset with his brothers again. Then when the bearer of good news came and placed the shirt onto Jacob's face, his eyesight returned, and he said, Did I not tell you that I have knowledge from God that you do not have? Then why was he so upset? The brothers said, Father, ask God to forgive our sins. We were truly in the wrong. He replied, I shall ask my Lord to forgive you. He is the most forgiving, the most merciful. Later, when they presented themselves before Joseph, he drew his parents to him. He said, Welcome to Egypt. You will all be safe here, God willing. Spoiler alert. What's that called? That's called foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. That's very foreshadowing. And took them up to his throne. So he said, You will all be safe here, God willing, and took them up to his throne. They all bowed down before him, and he said, Father, this is the fulfillment of that dream I had long ago. My Lord has made it come true and has been gracious to me. He released me from prison, and he brought you here from the desert, after Satan sowed discord between me and my brothers. My Lord is most subtle in achieving what he will. He is the all-knowing and the truly wise. So this is a very good sort of personal philosophy. This is like getting back to the idea that this, like I said, this is a useful philosophical step. This is a stepping stone in the history of Western philosophy, more so than I realized before I started this reading. And this idea of God works in mysterious ways, is quite useful for people in their personal philosophy. The people who, I genuinely believe people are constantly using God as a metaphor for nature, and it becomes more and more clear, honestly, the longer I speak about it. Especially all of the metaphysics discussion that we've had recently. But in this sense, you get this sort of peace upon yourself that you accept the things as they are, the serenity prayer, as I like to call it. You accept that you won't always know the right path. You won't always know what journey you will need to take. You won't always know what other people's journey will entail. You simply take them. You simply move through life as confidently as you can, doing as good as you can, and hope that you can remain steadfast to your principles. That is a decent way to live your life, honestly. Especially when you're as clever as Joseph is. My Lord, you have given me authority. You have taught me something about the interpretation of dreams. Creator of the heavens and earth, you are my protector in this world and in the hereafter. Let me die in true devotion to me. Join me with the righteous, as you would. This account is part of what was beyond your knowledge, Muhammad. What? This is quite a famous story, and it doesn't even contain all of the details. What? Like, I understand that he was illiterate, but clearly he knew about the Jews. Surely he knew about their religion being quite similar. If he didn't know that, yeah, whatever. We revealed it to you. You were not present with Joseph's brother when they made their treacherous plans. Oh goodness. However eagerly you may want them to, most men will not believe. You ask no reward for them for this. It is a reminder for all people, and there are many signs in the heavens and the earth that they pass by and give no heed to. Most of them will only believe in God while also joining others with him. Well, luckily I'm not one of those, unless you mean like others as these other sort of concepts. I suppose I do. Like I don't believe in God anymore. Like I believe in God as a concept in the same way like markets, like the invisible hand of the free market from like Adam Smith's, let's call it Adam Smith's theology, just to be a little bit edgy. Perhaps I should do that. The religion of capitalism. Honestly, I like capitalism. I like talking in favor of capitalism, but that's another story. So that clearly doesn't account for me, or it doesn't it does account for me because I'm not most like a few of them will believe in. Well, maybe it does account. Who cares? Are they so sure that an overwhelming punishment from God will not fall on them, or that the last hour will not come upon them suddenly when they least expect it? I'm kind of, yes. I'm saying that if God is good, as I'm being told constantly, then yeah, no, he will not punish me for my misdeed of leading you onto the crooked path, or showing you, in fact, that the path you're following is crooked. That is more important than just starting with doubt, starting with disbelief, starting with curiosity even. Curiosity to be able to be wrong. Curiosity to be able to understand that everything you know might be wrong. Everything you have ever believed, everything you will ever believe is probably going to be wrong. That is, I think, a noble task. And my intentions are so pure, clearly. I just simply want everyone to think. Will they not use their reason? So if you can survive me, surely you can survive well, I'm not that smart, to be honest. I'm not as smart as Joseph. The last hour will not come. Like this part of the statement indicates that I will need to convert in order, like, the suddenness. I should convert right now because suddenly in the future I might be, it might turn out that God ends my life, and then I won't have a chance to convert. But like I said, if God is good, He will find no reason to punish me. Will find no sins that blemish my soul, except that, of course, this book claims that there are so many for my disbelief, my doubt, my insolence, my irreverence, my mockery. I do not simply joke at the expense of the Prophet, I mock. And that, I think, is a good thing. I've seen too many great philosophers do it, to not believe in its veracity. Too many great philosophers do great works with it. Say, this is my way, based on clear evidence. I and all who follow me call people to God, glory be to God, I do not join others on. Based on clear evidence. Okay, proof by assertion then. All the messengers we sent before you, Muhammad, were men to whom we made revelations, men chosen from the people of their towns. Have the disbelievers not traveled through the land and seen the end of those who went before them? For those who are mindful of God, the home in the hereafter is better. Do you people not use your reason? Well, thank you for giving me that one, because that means we're going to super analyze this passage. All the messengers we sent before you, Muhammad, were men to whom we made revelations. Yep, God showed himself to them. Now, mention of the miracles I'm told about all of the time in the comments. Men chosen from the people of their towns made revelation, like their word. We're supposed to trust the people around them were supposed to simply trust that they had revelations. Trust them and not all of the other people who claim they have had revelations from God. Have the disbelievers not traveled through the land and seen the end of those who went before them? No, I mean, yes and no. I have seen some ancient ruins. For those who are mindful of God, the home in the hereafter is better than the ancient ruins. Yeah, well, I mean, anything I can imagine, probably. Do you people not use your reason? Yes, indeed. Proof by punishment. Proof by insistence, I suppose. Like, what is even the argument? What is the reason here? We sent Muhammad we made revelations, men chosen from the people of their town. Is that relevant? Have the disbelievers not traveled through the land and seen that's the proof? The proof is going through the land and seeing the end of those who went before them. That couldn't happen without God. Only if God is a metaphor for nature could that not have happened without God. So, sure enough, this is proof that nature exists. Well done. Nature is all connected. That's a good way of thinking about it. If the God here seeks to prove sort of a pantheistic view, that God is everything, then by all means. Do you people not use your reason? When the messengers lost all hope and realized that they had been dismissed as liars, our help came to them. We saved whoever we pleased, but our punishment will not be turned away from guilty people. When the messengers lost all hope and realized they had been dismissed as liars, our help came to them. So this indicates that the help that God sent to the messengers who had lost all hope is the saving of whoever he pleased, but the punishment for guilty people. The guilt, again, is not believing in them. No mention of miracles, only mention of revelation. But of course, we should simply know that they had miracles. Of course they must have. If not, would I not use my reason? Clearly, God must have implied this. Why God simply does not actually communicate this through his revelation is probably a poetic reason, right? Probably to make sure that the Qur'an sounds pretty, so that other people might believe it, because making things sound pretty is much more effective at getting fools to believe things. There is a lesson in the stories of such people for those who understand. This revelation is no fabrication. This revelation is no fabrication. Oh, that's lovely. Once more. This revelation is no fabrication. Oh my God, so good. This revelation is no fabrication. It is confirmation of the truth of what was sent before it, an explanation of everything, a guide and a blessing for those who believe. That's nice, actually. That's very nice. Honestly, since we're at the end, it's fair to say I was wrong. What I said at the beginning of this was wrong. I thought this would simply be a repeated insistence of what we'd seen already. It does have some elements of that, but all in all, broadly speaking, actually it's just a better version of those two paths. Because the past two surahs deal with these past visitations, and it sort of, interestingly, it does describe things slightly differently, but that's in a whole other topic. But it seemed to me all the time that they were describing it, either this should be taken literally as they should have believed, and because they didn't just listen and believe to anyone who claimed that they were God's messenger, that's why they were punished, because they didn't listen and believe. Not any other reason, not any other interpretation. Nothing else can be true other than what we're saying here. And you should always listen to what the people who claim they're coming from God say, which is clearly to me absurd and abhorrent. But this idea of this being a guide and a blessing, more specifically for those who believe, this idea that people should sort of warm themselves with contentment for the idea that the point of this surah is not so much to convince me. The point or indeed anyone else. The point is, for those who already, it is a preaching to the choir. That's the intention of this surah. It is to comfort those who already believe, to make them more steadfast in their faith, to make them more okay with the difficulty they will face. There will always be many who disbelieve. There will always be some who are harsh and who deal unfairly, like Joseph's friends. And like Joseph, we can show them sort of the mercy of God. We can represent God in that way, can manifest God's love and grace into the world by accepting that we can also be forgiving. We can also accept the difficulties of imperfect, fallible humans. And that should be a guide and blessing for those who believe. And in fact, that does lead me into the interesting topic I think I'll start dealing with more and more in the stream, more of this political philosophy of how should we approach the idea of writing laws for God. I think that most Islamophobes, as every Islamophobe, the idea of Sharia law is despicable to me. But I think I haven't made this point clearly enough. And I think the point I'm trying to make in this idea is that there are some crimes which only God is fit to judge, and some crimes which men are fit to judge. And the crimes against men we can do, but when we do it, the goal of doing it, and I'm going to praise the legal system of the country I come from, I live in, of Norway, where we very much try and make people better. We don't necessarily try and punish them. It's not as an act of deterrence we give punishment. Instead, it is an act of reintegration. It's not like punitive, it's rehabilitative rather than punitive is what I wanted to say. So take an example, the US, you get punished for whatever you do, and the point is to exact an equal toll, an eye for an eye, and that kind of thinking. Whereas I think what we should do, and I think perhaps this can be taken as this surah in its entirety can be taken, the story of Joseph in its entirety can be taken as a sort of tacit support of this, implicit support of the idea that we should also be capable of forgiving people who are willing to do good, that people are not simply ruined forever just because they do not believe right away, or indeed they do evil at some point in time. And that, I think, will be a topic that I want to engage with more and more. I'm very curious about this, very curious about people's different views on this. But that will be all for today. I'm going a little bit faster because I think a lot of the points I've wanted to make I've already been able to make, and now it's sort of slow, or like my ability to think about this is more clear because I have already an idea of what the point of the various surahs is going to be. I'm not going in as blind as I was before, so we're going a little bit faster. But thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you on stream or again tomorrow.